Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max.
Welcome, everyone. We are the Geek Patrol, and our microphones don't have a stun setting. I'm Joe Thorderson, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth and our pal Max over there behind the glass. Notably absent is our pal Brandon Olmstead and Alyssa Diggs. I guess the holidays were too much for them. You and I are in here doing our duty. We recorded Tool Talk yesterday. We're here today, and give them the weekend off.
Absolutely, let them go rest up after your convention.
Well, I was gonna say, especially after the weekend they had last week. I mean, I was tempted to sleep in today, but no, we're not going to do it. A big shout out to everybody who came out to the 14th annual Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention last week. It was at the University of Memphis Holiday Inn. Alan, I would have to call this an unqualified success. Our attendance was up, zero drama. Nobody burned the hotel down. Nothing. I heard very little drama. I mean,
I talked to one of the security people on Sunday afternoon, and I said, "So, how was your weekend?"
Right.
And my answer was totally boring.
That's what you want.
And I said that is the right answer.
Yeah, if your security team is bored, you're doing something right. But the energy was great. I mean, I saw a lot of new faces.
Oh my gosh,
and
so many.
Several of them, because we were kind of polling people as they came in. A lot of people heard about the show on the Max, which was great.
Yes.
They heard about it on Geek Tank Radio, which is always fun. But a big shout out to everyone, because it's not easy doing this. I'm just gonna say, folks, it's a lot of work, and usually by about Friday night, I'm telling myself I'm never doing this again. This is way too. It's exhausting. But then Sunday afternoon rolls around, and you're hearing all the happy stories, and you have people coming up and telling you how it went, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna keep. Yeah, we'll keep it going.
Yeah, okay, I'll get over
And I want to give a on-air shout out to the staff at the Holiday Inn at the University of Memphis, folks. If you're thinking of hosting an event, I love that venue. That staff was on. They were on the job all weekend, and you needed something, boom, 2 minutes later, it's done. Great people. I want to give a special shout out to Curtis and Willie. Great guys. They were part of the banquet staff, and our buddy Deidre and Greg, and there's a lot of people over there. I don't want to leave anybody out, but those two in particular were right there in the trenches with us all weekend, making sure we had what we needed, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's always fun when you get other people's perspective, because when we put these on, I don't know about you, but all I see are the things I wish I had done better.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't like that banner over there. I wish I'd have scheduled it. You know what I mean? You only see the mistakes. Other people don't even notice them.
No. They don't notice it. I got a couple of quick shout outs. I'd like to shout out, of course, the University of Memphis. Mm-hmm. This is a training hotel.
Right.
It was a little bit of a flashback with Holiday Inns for me, because I am an original Holiday Inn brat.
And you're not kidding either. Your dad was working with Kemmons Wilson.
I literally grew up in Holiday Inns.
Right.
Yes. So that was a lot of fun. And, for all of you guys over at the engineering department that sought me out all weekend long, I hope you guys were having as much fun as it looked like you were having, because y'all were rolling.
Right.
Had a great time. And to our new friends at MLG&W that were there as attendees.
They travel in packs, I've noticed.
Oh, my gosh. I got
bonded.
swarmed so many times.
Yeah.
So, a couple of big shout-outs there. So we had a great weekend, had a lot of amazing conversations. And, folks, if you see Joe and I out in public, don't hesitate to say hello to us.
It's fun, because it doesn't happen to me hardly.
Thrill.
It hardly ever happens to me.
Happens to me a lot more than it happens to you, but you know what? I don't think you minded the attention.
Well, and if you find Max out in public, it's like spotting Sasquatch, because he hides his identity.
That's like finding Waldo.
Hey, Max, I do want to say something, though. And we're going to get to other things today, too, folks. We're going to talk today about holiday movies that are geeky and unconventional holiday movies. I want to say one thing, though, because one thing that happens at the Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention, and any unique event like this, is you remember in the past we talk quite a bit about the show MASH, and one of the qualities of the show MASH is that they have such a strong cast. You could take any two characters and dump them into a situation, and they can work with each other, and you might get a whole, you put Father Mulcahy in there with Klinger, you're going to get one type of dynamic. Well, Max, you said this is one of the few occasions you and Allie got to hang out a bit, and it was kind of a unique experience, right?
Because it's like we both grew up around the con and everything, but we were like ships passing on the sea. And so it was an interesting opportunity to actually interact with people who you always see but never actually get to interact with.
Yeah, because you guys were working like registration for hours, and when you're sitting there, and then, you actually have a little time to breathe, and you're talking, and it's funny.
Have a conversation.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, I never knew that about Allie. Oh, I never knew that about Max or something. And she told me, yeah, she really enjoyed hanging out with you as well. So it's just cool, it's fun. And then the pictures start rolling in, and just when you're so exhausted that you think I can't ever do this again, then that counteracts it. And then by Sunday afternoon, we were already making plans for 2025. So yes, folks, never fear. I'm sure we're going to be back in 2025, but it was a lot of fun. It's like we said, it's really fun when a plan goes well. I want to give a shout out to our celebrity guest, Brandon Potter. He just couldn't have been nicer. The people that came up and got to meet him and get his autograph and go to his Q&A just all said the same thing. He's just a really good dude, which is funny because he plays the most rotten villain in
your point.
It's interesting how that works. The villains are often just the coolest people.
They're the ones having the most fun.
Yeah, personally, if I was an actor and if I was in that, I would want to do that all day.
I never want to play the hero.
Yeah,
I love being the werewolf. I love getting to, massacre the masses. I love being the villain.
So you're not going to hear about it for a while, though. We're taking a break for several months. So it's out there. We're making our plans for the 2025 Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention, but you don't need to hear about that every week. So we're gonna shift gears. What you are going to hear about, and what we're going to have a nice discussion about, is holiday movies. Not your, we're maybe more in the geek realm. There's some movies, too, that you wouldn't necessarily think are holiday movies, but maybe they are in your family. And so
family traditions are a strange list of things.
Yeah, so we're gonna lean into that, and I'm sure we're gonna have if some food reference doesn't come up from Allan, I don't think we're doing our job. But it's all coming at you next on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. Their Metachlorian count is off the charts. The Geek Patrol is back.
And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Allan Gilbreth and Max over there behind the glass. Our buddy Max over there behind the glass, and Allie and Alyssa and Brandon have taken the weekend off. That well deserved. They worked hard last weekend, and I think they ran themselves ragged over Thanksgiving. So yeah. Whatever, fair play, but we expect you all on duty next weekend. Hey, you guys, before the break, if you're just tuning in, obviously, we want to talk a little bit about holiday movies and maybe non-traditional holiday movie. Everybody's got their... can I give one small jumping off point, if anecdotal, in that vein? Back in 1990, when I lived in San Diego, I was in my 20s, and geez, Max, okay, you got it figured out over there? In my 20s, I was a little younger than you, Max, and basically, in San Diego, pretty much everybody there is from somewhere else. So all of my friends were either from, the East Coast or Walla Walla, Washington, or whatever. Well, my buddy Dave Hill and I were the only people that didn't go home for Christmas, so it had to be one of the most boring Christmases ever. We literally... sat at his house and we watched the entire Star Wars trilogy, because back in the day, that was the big thing. Everybody puts out the Star Wars trilogy. So we spent a good 10 hours sitting there watching TV, bored to death, but still it turned in my mind, I associate the Star Wars original trilogy with the holidays. So I'm just saying, nothing's off the table here. Brandon probably has horror movies that he watches over the holidays, but Allan, why do we need this? Why is this so important to us? Especially somebody like you who has, no sentimentality, but
let's see here. All right, in Victorian times, we'll set the Wayback Machine.
Okay.
What was the number one big Christmas activity in Victorian times, Joe or Max? Either one of you know?
Well, go ahead, Max. I think I can guess, but...
I'm going to have to say something along the lines of making fruitcake.
Well, I was going to say storytelling around the fireplace or something.
Bingo. What kind of stories?
Probably just verbal. You just sat
Horror
there. And
stories.
Haunting German tales. I was going to say that.
Ghost stories.
Really? Now, why is that? Why would that
the
be?
number one ghost story told every year is
Christmas Carol.
A Christmas Carol.
You know,
So-
that's true. That honestly, that could be a pretty scary story for a kid. I mean,
That's a terrifying
it is,
story.
especially if you really lean into it with the
All right,
chains. And
think
the
about
ghosts
the
and
number one piece of music played every Christmas is
Silent Night.
I'm thinking
Nutcracker.
bigger. The Nutcracker Suite, Tchaikovsky.
Okay.
All right, you are correct. Silent Night's a big one, but all right, have you ever realized what all of these songs are about?
A lot of horrifying things.
You know,
War.
welcome to, and who's this Krampus guy?
I
You
never
know-
thought of the horror element. That's interesting.
Well, I'm just going to throw that in because we've always had some type of midwinter entertainment.
You know,
And it was usually ghostly stories or rat kings and nutcrackers or of the Krampus was going to come get you or the Norwegian cat was going to eat you if you were a bad child or, so I mean, welcome to midwinter and welcome to the tradition of being entertained.
right? Yeah.
And I don't think that's ever stopped, but I think we have kind of a weird approach to midwinter because it's
Thanksgiving definitely feels different than Christmas. That's for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Thanksgiving, it's kind of the end of the harvest, and it's the land of plenty. You get another month in, and now it's snowy and it's cold and it's miserable, unless you're south of Memphis.
Well, I hate to say it too. The other part of it, if we're just being brutally honest, once you become an adult and you have kids and everything, okay, Thanksgiving is much cheaper to celebrate. You're buying a bunch of food and boom, that's about it.
Yeah.
And Christmas. So you're looking at Christmas as a little bit farther off. So the grisly reality of it hasn't quite sunk in yet. You're just like, oh, okay, Christmas is around the corner.
A month and a half after that, you got Valentine's, and then you're heading into Easter. So, I mean, it's just holiday after holiday, boom, 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 back to back.
Yeah. What are you laughing at, Max?
Sorry, I was looking at the size of the Norwegian forest cat.
Oh, yeah.
Allan was mentioning it.
Isn't that thing absolutely terrifying?
It's pretty cool looking, though.
Yeah,
The
wouldn't you
Norwegian
love
forest
to hear those stories before you go to bed?
Right.
Yeah, it's about the size of the child, and so it makes sense that, fear it because it will consume you.
Yeah,
Well, think about it, though. Back in the day, if you had to go to the bathroom, you go to the outhouse.
Yeah.
You better instill a healthy fear of what's out there to your kids so they don't get tempted. Oh, I'm going to wander off into the woods over here.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like,
you're not wandering anywhere.
No.
So, winter is kind of a love-hate relationship. We kind of like it, and we kind of celebrate it, and then again, we kind of fear it.
Yeah.
So the holiday movie, I think, is an outreach of that. For instance, I'll pick on the latest one that just came out, Red One. It really doesn't know if it's a horror movie, a Christmas movie, or an action movie.
I haven't seen it yet, but what I'm hearing is it takes itself serious. Like, it's like, hey, if there was a Santa Claus, this is the way it would operate.
This
This
is
is
the
how
action movie, baby.
government
There we go.
institutions would interact. This is his security team and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
And so
and
that could be fun.
Well,
Got a fun cast.
Dwayne Johnson is a extremely large and formidable operative in
Right.
ELF. So there's some banter, there's some twist, there's some throws at it, and will it get played for the next 30 years at Christmas? That's the real question.
Right.
And the answer is, of course it is.
If we're gonna play Elf and Will Ferrell every year, this will make it.
If Jimmy Stewart is still making the rounds every year, and if that kid is still going to put his eye out with that Red Ryder rifle, we just and some of these movies are you kind of watch them and you go, they're kind of depressing.
Oh, I mean, It's a Wonderful Life has a lot of really just
He's
dreary-
there
About
to
suicide.
kill himself.
Yeah,
He's
right.
there to kill him. I mean, the point of the movie is this is what happens if you jump.
Yeah.
What if you weren't born? The whole kid with the Red Ryder rifle. It's a whole movie about don't shoot your eye out.
Yeah, but that movie's depressing too. I'd say that it's just like, gosh, if that was your dad or your okay, anyway. All right, well, we're gonna lean into it. There's plenty more on the table when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
And I, for one, welcome our new insect overlords. Like to remind them that as a trusted TV personality, I can be helpful in rounding up others to toil in their underground sugar caves.
Speaking of unconventional holiday films.
No kidding. And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Allan Gilbreth and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And Brandon and Alyssa will be back next week. They're taking the holiday weekend off. Not us, though. We're here, and we're talking about holiday movies. It's funny because it is fun for me to think about the holidays at the moment. Once we start getting closer and all the money is being spent, and I mean, I'm sorry, it's so commercial that inevitably you spend more money than you want to, and that can be a little bit depressing. However, here on Thanksgiving weekend, we're in the throes of let's have a little fun. Let's. Yeah. But we're talking about holiday movies. We predict Red One. I guess it's not doing great at the box office, but we think it's still destined to be a holiday classic. I mean, well. Look at the ingredients that it has.
Also look at the track record this year of the movies that didn't do well at the theater.
Right.
Have mostly done exceedingly well the moment they started streaming.
Yeah, I think
so.
Yeah, I think that might be a trend.
Well, I think that has to do with like the meme culture too, because you could probably get a lot of good memes out of Red One.
Oh, I think so. And I mean, it's going to hold, it'll be fine. And it's like, if you're going into this movie looking for, gritty realism or, how stilted the dialogue is, well, you know what? That's not what this movie's for. It's
no. But it's all right. Well, all right. You're bringing up 2 points. One, we're bringing up we've talked about this 100 times, and we'll probably keep talking about it. And it's how well are movie theaters actually doing?
Well, that's it. Yeah, you can't just ignore that fact.
And
if something's going to be streamed in 30 days, well, how much time do you have to?
Well, and I'm also going to point out that your package killer big stores are selling 50-inch televisions for $300.
Right. Yeah.
So why do I need to go to the movie theater?
Yeah,
I'm just kind of, I'm saying that with for $300 whole dollars, or AKA the price of taking 4 or 5 people to the movies.
Right.
I can get a 50-inch TV with a sound bar, and it hangs on the wall these days. It doesn't weigh 400 pounds. It just hangs on the wall, and that's pretty much a movie theater experience at home.
Now, there's a movie coming up that I want to see. I plan on seeing it.
Okay.
But, I missed it, but it's doing very well in terms of ratings, and I think, the critics' reviews, and also I think it's making some money, and it's a lower budget movie. It's by Dallas Jenkins called The Greatest Christmas Pageant Ever, and I think the basic approach was I don't know if you've ever heard of a thing. It's a Broadway musical called The Play That Goes Wrong.
Right.
And basically, it's showing you a play that they're doing on the spot, and you get to see the behind the scenes, and everything goes wrong. Which to me is a good formula, because the worse it goes, the funnier it is, and everything. And apparently, this has it's pretty heartwarming. It's very well done, and it is a full on holiday movie. But Max, I wanted to look at you for a minute, because you said recently for Thanksgiving you watched a non-traditional movie,
Pirates of the Caribbean again.
But
I was actually able to watch it when I was a kid, when I was 6 years old, in the theaters, and so it was kind of cool to being able to watch it back again as an adult, because man, I forget how wonderful the dialogue was, the music, the cast was so perfect. It was almost a perfect film for me.
It is a perfect film for me, and I've said this before, but if you're new to Geek Tank Radio, when I saw it in the theaters back in 2003, it was like seeing a Broadway show, because at the end of the movie, people were applauding. Some even stood up. Mm-hmm. It was such a feel-good, fun, really well-executed movie that played up to the intelligence of its audience too. There's some great dialogue, there's some great acting, and the music is flawless.
And before it came out, it got savaged.
Oh yeah.
There were a lot of people going, has anybody not told Disney not to turn their rides into movies?
Right.
I'm dead serious. I mean, that is an actual quote that I remember, early on about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as a person from the martial arts, I loved the fact the movie didn't rush. And when you had a sword fight, there was even one sword fight that was like a master class.
Yeah, they were discussing.
They were
footwork.
talking to each other.
Right.
I hadn't seen anything that good since The Princess Bride.
Right. Yep.
Because not only that too, but like the fact that like it didn't just end in a way that was like a very anticlimactic. Even the very last scene when the shot was fired and there was like the sword fight was ending and what was Elizabeth's shot and stuff like that. Like it was very. I mean, I of course knew the end of it because I had seen it so many years ago, but still, when you see it again, it's still very effective.
Yeah, it seems like an appropriate holiday. It's fun. I think that's what I go for with it. It's like, okay, we're all together. We're going to sit around. And it's funny because the more you make me think of it, A Christmas Carol is very depressing. I even find the one with the you'll shoot your eye out depressing. There's a lot of them that are pretty dark. So who's to say your family tradition can't be, hey, we're going to watch Return of the Jedi, or we're going to watch whatever that's our holiday tradition. So.
Well, I've noticed certain channels are getting into holiday traditions, and I guess we'll talk a little more about those in just a minute.
Well, I'll say this too, just to round off. One thing that back in the day when Star Wars was releasing good movies, Rogue One came out I think it came out Christmas Eve. I took my kids to see it, and of course, Rogue One is one of my favorite Star Wars movies. And in my mind, I do associate that with the holidays just because of the time that it came out. And I'll tell you this, too.
Such a happy ending in that one.
Well, but it's still. But then again, I drove by the movie theater on Thanksgiving. I can't remember what I had to do. I think I had to just run and get something. The theater was packed. The theater was packed. So that is a tradition itself. Christmas Eve, Thanksgiving, people are out there going to the movies, even on Christmas Day and stuff, because having that communal experience.
We're looking for a story.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a nice way to celebrate. But anyway, we've got to, and hopefully we can get to everything here on our list, but we're going to continue the attempt when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
Drop the robot.
And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Allan Gilbreth and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And Brandon and Allie will be back next week. They're on vacation for the Thanksgiving weekend. Speaking of the Thanksgiving weekend, we're on topic, at least. We're talking about holiday movies, maybe non-traditional holiday movies as well. We have to say that the more I'm pondering it, the original holiday stories from of old, and really just even our childhood, the 60s and 70s, Allan, were about as depressing. Basically you have a super depressing and really, sad story with about a 2-minute happy ending, and that's it. So I'm just going to say Frosty the Snowman. What a depressing story that is. All the Rankin Bass claymation ones, and really one that gave me nightmares till I was about 16, which was the Heat Miser and the Cold Miser.
Oh.
What was that from? Was that from Santa Claus is Coming or something?
That
was the creepiest.
They were like musicals, man. Come on.
And the song sticks in your head, but those guys, the Cold Miser gave me nightmares. What about you? I mean, those are awful. And they were supposed to be kid-friendly and, kid-friendly back in those days.
Nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
So, welcome. Yeah.
They were pretty bad.
Welcome to the stories. I mean, everybody goes, I can't believe the Victorians told ghost stories. And I'm like, have you seen what we normally put out?
Right.
Tim Burton was picked on slightly for, "'Twas the Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right.
And I looked at that and I went, this was child's play compared to some of the things we thought were standard fare.
Right.
I mean, at least this character was just kind of like, hey, I'm going to move into another holiday because I think it's cool.
Now, here's where things change. And, Max, this is where your generation benefited. So, I believe it was 1990, it was in 1990 or 1991, a movie came out, and I would say this is a landscape-changing movie, which was Home Alone, which is just pure fun. I mean, it's full of gratuitous violence, some of the funniest performances ever, and, you're totally rewatchable. And that was so Max, before your era, they shifted gear and said, hey, why can't a holiday movie be fun and goofy?
And it also still had like a heartwarming ending. And I'd argue the second Home Alone was still just as good too. So it was a sequel that, while not necessarily necessary, was still held up on its own merit.
Right. Yeah, I think so too. And I don't know if this counts as holiday stuff, but somehow the timing of, man, I'm jumping all over the map here, but I'm just trying to get to my notes. The Great British Baking Show in recent years, at least here in America, it starts to air in October, and somehow the finale always winds up on the Thanksgiving weekend or nearabouts there. And I'm starting to associate the Great British Baking Show with the holidays, Alan. And this season was particularly good. Don't let anybody spoil it for you if you haven't seen it.
No. Well, I like the one that they've they picked up the Weasley brothers and they're doing Harry Potter cooking challenges.
Now, how's that working? I haven't seen it yet. Is that?
Well, you discover that the Weasley brothers aren't actors. That was just them. They gave them brooms and cakes.
They just said, get out of the way, give them some lines to say.
They said, here you go. Go have fun, guys. You can honestly expect one of them at any moment to fly off on something, watching it. Shockingly British.
Harry Potter, in my mind, I associate with the holiday because I love the Harry Potter audiobooks, and I really love listening to them in the wintertime.
They always made a point of having a happy Christmas scene in the middle of every one of them.
But that's also that's also hearkening back to Dickens, though, because it's like if you think about Harry Potter, it's a crime story.
Yeah, you got
Voldemort the murderer.
The most evil wizard trying to murder a child. Have fun, everybody, with that one. So, yeah.
Describe the pudding, won't you?
Yeah. And I'm not as big a fan of the movies, although I could see where people might say, let's put on a little Harry Potter for the
meme-rable.
Meme-rable. So.
All right. Well, I will say this about Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Harry Potter. When you get over yourself, whatever was stuck in your craw, when you get over yourself, all of them are still fairly enjoyable movies.
Yeah.
And you will sit down and catch yourself watching it, even though you know who's going to win, you know who's going to lose, you know who's going to kill who, you know what's going to happen. It's still kind of putting on a warm sweater of a story that you don't now have to think about.
Well, it's epic enough, too, where it's like, okay.
And there's enough of this, there's enough of that. And, there are some movies that the special effects are very dated.
Yeah.
And there are others where they're now just quaint.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You look at like the old claymations.
Right.
If you look at a modern Wallace and Gromit, which is still a claymation, but the techniques have exchanged, the cameras have improved, the materials they use have improved, but it's still that same quaint, comfortable feeling.
And I was just going to say, like, the inner skeletons of, like, the claymations improved, like, thanks in part to, like, Tim Burton, his advanced claymation. And like you said, there is still sort of the quaint element behind it. And so I like the idea of still maintaining an element of the classic, even if it's polished by modern tech.
And of course, we have to mention It's a Wonderful Life. What a masterpiece that is. Although I have to say, I don't always like watching it on Christmas. I'm kind of I don't know why I seem to like watching that movie in anticipation of Christmas, a week out or so. I don't know.
The Advent season. I was going to challenge you all.
Okay.
I like the idea of this just came to my head. How about watching Godzilla -1 as a Christmas or Advent film?
That is a great movie.
You could watch it
I haven't watched it in black and white yet, but
you don't have to challenge me to watch a Godzilla movie. Really.
That is a great movie. And what do they spend? $10 million on that movie?
Nah, they spent about 10,
and they've
11
made
million.
$8 billion. I don't know. They're making their money back, and it's well deserved.
It's still making the rounds. Yeah. So
great movie. But you know what? If you have a holiday movie, let us know about it. Go to Geek Tank Radio on Facebook. Send us a message and let us know what you're going to be watching.
I got friends that do that are infamous for holiday bad movie, and they will pick like, Crocodile versus Anaconda or Sharknado, and just pick something totally bizarre.
So send those out, but don't do it now because the show's over. We got to get out of here. So until next week, we are the Geek Patrol, and I am Joe Thorderson.
I'm Maximilian.
And I'm Allan Gilbreth, challenging you to see what kind of holiday spirit you can really get into.